Behavior change. Author of the kindness method is the source, and I highly recommend watching an interview made with her by the YouTube channel called The Journal of a CEO, if I remember correctly. So this person talks about the upsides and downsides of certain behaviors. She works in addiction, so she helps people who are dependent on substance and feel helpless about it, or dependent on behavior and feel dependent about it. So she really opens up in this interview, and in there she mentions the mistakes that she's made, how she lost 55 kilograms with quote-unquote kindness, and how she discovered all of this ironically only after she has made the decision to help other people and choose this path as her career choice. So some of the mistakes that she has made, or has many people make, is one, thinking that the long-term desired outcome is going to be compelling enough to get you where you want to be. You start from a place of desperation. You say, this is it. I want progression. You have to define where you start. You have to be really honest with yourself. You cannot lie to yourself about your needs or your current present state. Plus, motivation is not enough. When plans do not go according to plan, we really have to consider this, because motivation is a great kickstarter. It gets the excitement flow. It gets the whole process going, right? But when we are disciplined enough to actually make the right move without motivation, that's when we gain true empowerment in the process of learning how to behave better. So a solution is zoom in, get involved in and excited about demonstrating your capacity in a role, so as to demonstrate to yourself that indeed you are capable of making your best decisions yet, every single time. Being able to fill in the blank is my goal. So in case you expect joy from a certain activity, then that does not mean that you follow your bliss. That doesn't mean that you follow your joy. Like, the order is changed. So you need to really focus on a certain type of behavior that is entirely under your control, but not through self-hate, only through self-compassion. So compassion with yourself. When you do something in order to fill in the blank, or when you do something so as to, so it's a so that, it's like a have to, it's like chasing a goal that is happiness itself. then you really cannot focus on a process of overcoming obstacles in your way, because you're so you don't see the goal ahead of you for what it is. You are extremely delusional, but not in a constructive way, because sometimes being delusional is beneficial. You are being delusional by means of ignoring how you feel in the present moment, and that's where the problem begins, because when you ignore yourself that way, it's really just, it's not the right step, because when you consider better feeling instead of trying to feel better, then it is only then that you realize what you are actually missing, and only then can you focus on what you need to focus on, which in either situation is either your desired outcome, which results as the result of a certain discipline process and joy, or the obstacles in your way. So start doing things you put on hold and have boundaries, okay? Especially when it comes to binge eating, start having boundaries with yourself, but lean into the other things, like focus on what you can control, and if you cannot escape by any other means, then just get up and do something more exciting than the action that you have been doing. Give yourself what makes you feel calm and happy. So whatever makes you anxious, you want to give yourself the opposite of. There has to be conscious action taken by means of practicing better self-talk in the period that you may experience the trigger. And after you've experienced the trigger, you have to be really careful about the period that comes after, because that's where you control your response and how long it takes for you to eventually respond. So, to repeat, assess what helps you do things in a row until they get easier, and do them. Be nicer to yourself. Do what makes everything in that space, in that period between trigger and response, to feel calm, positive, mature in the way of self-care, self-soothing, self-care, in the way of self-care and compassion with patience. So be patient with yourself and demonstrate your ability in a role, because this is again about behavior change, not about getting results overnight, right? Reasons why some people are unsuccessful in their change. First, their conversation with themselves. Be proud of yourself. So this is what you should do. Be proud of yourself that you made the next day, actually, because we tend to, in a life of materialism and individualism, take it much for granted that we are alive, but this is just the illusion, right? This is the illusion of comfort. In truth, it's not at all a guarantee that you will wake up the next day. So please just cherish yourself for having made the next day. I think it kind of speaks for itself. I don't have to explain it further. So some of the mistakes that people do is they think that remedying some negatives long term will be exciting enough to keep them on track long enough to make that habit automatic. And worse than that, they hope the latter. Another mistake is focusing on what's wrong with them as opposed to their assets that actually they can benefit from and is still part of them. So locked and loaded, debate with genuine evidence to the contrary of your lacks of assets, and want to improve things generally, taking life off hold. So take life off hold, general speaking, again, leaning to the other things. Everything you're gonna reward yourself, everything you were gonna reward yourself with initially by means of experiencing the outcome of joy as a result of going through a certain process, start doing. Update your life generally, not just in the context of that habit. If I started doing it now, would it put me in a better position to do things, as in change of behavior? So lean into the other things. That's all I keep saying. Another mistake is focusing on what's wrong with behavior they're engaging in as opposed to how it serves them. So this is focusing on a problem, and this is the problem. It's not the solution. This behavior actually deprives you of the understanding of whether there's a problem. So in order to see clearly in general, in life, in whatever area, you have to see the positive. You have to show compassion, especially towards yourself, because you get even more confused. This is especially true with me. I grew up in the country of pessimism, so I was surrounded by negativity, like basically everywhere I went, except in the reactions that people actually saw themselves in me, because I looked so pure in some cases. Take pure with a pinch of salt, I mean not harmful. So since I got this personal experience, I can definitely account for the fact that gratitude really helps to just see the truth, just see clearly. And I do not want you to beat yourself up for anything that you've made, because even in the sitting, like in the process of trying to get yourself out of something, you will have to show compassion for yourself. You will have no other choice. Definitely not in the long run. Feel the behavior with the solution. Feel the thinking patterns with the solution. Feel the void with the solution, rather than looking at how a behavior may not serve you. At the same time, feel the negative self-talk, not with a solution, okay? But look at how a behavior may serve you. So on the top of the pyramid, the most important action to take is to look at how a behavior, be it any type of behavior, may serve you. Look at your assets, focus on your assets, and then, only then, do come up with an actual solution. Because you obviously have to see clearly in order to take any action, right? Sometimes you have to taste the lemons before you make the lemonade. Always have curious, compassionate inquiry towards yourself. You're not just that type of person. You shouldn't just do something. You should or should not do something. So don't gaslight yourself, don't ignore yourself. You shouldn't start on Monday. No, this is what people tell themselves usually when they kind of like invert the negative conversations they've endured. But this is not as effective, because tough love only has such an effect. It works for only so long. Long-term habit changes take time. And not as much effort as you think. Not necessarily. So you cannot hate yourself out of self-hatred, right? Compassion is the answer. Assess what habits need to change and have a plan. Actual solutions that have helped people with addictions for when they want to keep on track. Take the advice you would give to a close person or to a stranger or to a friend. Write it down. Write down what you would say to your friend and read it back. How does that make you feel? Actually, write an actual letter to someone who is a close friend who is going through a potentially similar situation, even if the situation is imaginary, so it doesn't exist, it's just in your head. But imagine your friend is in that situation. Write the letter, writing on the top of the page their name, and then when you've written the letter, cross out the name of the friend and replace it with your own. And then read the letter. Use the Trojan horse of habit change to positively motivate yourself. And delve into the story with compassion. So ask questions like, how did I come to be this way? And genuinely consider the answer. Okay? Maybe consider journaling. Besides, ask, how cool is it that this isn't my fault, but I decided to make it my own responsibility, right? Listen in to the inner voice. Turn on the volume. Ask questions like, how can I use behavior change as a Trojan horse and the discomfort I have to sit in? The unavoidable short-term discomfort or cravings. To listen in on the way that I speak to myself and work out whether these predictable alerts of my body are turning into commands that I'm obeying. Practice self-compassion. Ask, how long has this been true? Use affirmations to help when self-acceptance is present. Not to put yourself ahead of more expectations or in even greater level of tug of war, but rather reinforce with affirmations. There is no remedy We're checking in with ourselves in every second, right? Remind yourself of your ability to do things that are difficult. Remind yourself of times in the past, giving them perspective. And then tell yourself, we'll get back on track. So, you can even create an achievement box. I read this in the book of Teal Swan. She wrote a book called The Sculptor in the Sky. And in that, she mentioned creating a physical box of accomplishments, that physical proof, even filled with pictures, gems, anything that reminds you of what you have achieved, and your positive memories, anything that just represents how positively you're able to feel about yourself, someone else, or your life. You can fill it with pictures of loved ones, pets, and so on. You can do anything like that to remind yourself about how good of a person you actually are, because you are, right? You do the right things whenever you can with the tools that you have. So behaviors and values are aligned, and that's where the progression starts, when you align your behaviors with your values. Remind yourself that you can do this. What would you tell a friend again? You are amazing. It's just a bled. What can I do for you? Say these things to yourself. How do you overcome imposter syndrome? Give yourself permission to find what you find difficult. Manage anxiety and binging. I was great at this. Period. That's it. That's what you should tell yourself. I was great at this. This is the best I've ever been. Though things have been going on, I'm still well and alive. And period. End of story. Finish the thought there. You can also detach, just an addition from your negative emotions sometimes, by seeing yourself with bird's eye, so from a bird's eye view, basically. So zoom out, actually. That also gives you a better ability to just control yourself in the period of the trigger happening and the response that came after the trigger. You can also detach by labeling your emotions without judging them. This is just the emotion, this is not you. This is just the emotion. You can also detach by zooming out in time, so not in space but in time, reminding yourself of the 5-5-5 rule. So consider whether this specific action you're going through now will matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5, so on and so on. These are my favorite tools for detaching, but the rest of the tools you can also find in Teal Swan's book that I've already mentioned. Again, close the gap between what you would tell other people to do and what you actually tell yourself. Close the gap. That's the key to behavior change. Ask yourself sincerely, what triggers me? What triggers you? What triggers me? Say, to make up for whatever quote unquote mistake by doing fill in the blank, anything. What is the hard action on yourself instead of the soft one? What is the hard thought even? What decision do you tend to make that would make things harder and more accumulated, so to speak, for you? So more like a burden, feeling like a burden, instead of softer and better feeling. It's not true that you shouldn't tune in on what you feel, especially if it's something that feels right. Rather, you should not base your happiness on your ability to act or not act, on motivation or the lack thereof. So you shouldn't judge yourself. But just know that discipline brings with it joy, and so you should follow your joy, but you shouldn't chase the prospect of happiness without even feeling or having felt the why. So the joyous, pleasant feeling and association to happiness, if you know what I mean. Take any of your habits and accept that you are lovable either way, with or without the habits. Say to yourself, I will always love you no matter what, but I would appreciate it if you could do this for me. I believe in you. This should be your internal talk, because this is the most compassionate way that you can turn to yourself. Say, you don't have to have another person to validate you constantly, or to have anything external validate you in your worth. You are worthy with or without their validation. Take steps. 1. Use a snapshot layer. Meet yourself and get yourself on board with whom you met. Where are you starting? 2. Establish what you're afraid you might have to experience if you change. If you get there, what if it's not as good as you think? When you get there, will you have to do all the things that you say you were gonna do when you get there? Is the process of getting there one that you are familiar with? What do you think you're gonna have to get through? What are you gonna have to prove? What triggers do you have to respond to differently? Consider the answers to these questions and statements, and then take action. Ask yourself, what self-doubts are you going to have to push against and update and disprove along the way? Anticipate that in a week's time, you're going to want to use, to indulge, to get back. Assume your plans will not go to plan, so be prepared for the worst. Put things in place. Widen the gap between trigger and response. Change your environment if you need to. reframe challenges and opportunities to voluntarily demonstrate your capacity in a row for yourself. Say, here we go, I'm off grid right now, and I only have the advice I would give to another person and the conversation I have with myself that's gonna turn into what I do with my hands or don't do. Hold firmness and kindness together. Treat yourself with a 3 years perspective. So see your world and everything that you experience with the eyes of a 3-year-old. Use compassion again. Be smart, warm, and kind to yourself in a very, very self-soothing way. Basically, just know that you're enough, but food, any amount of it, and its ingestion in your body does not change the fact that you're enough. Until you've done it in a row, until it becomes easy, keep repeating. Empowered eating looks like you decide what you do with your hands. Any negotiation you have internally about it is a jumping off point and doesn't actually make you do anything. And it is an insight into what you're telling yourself about the sugar and what it means and how you feel if you don't have it. Replace sugar with any addictive substance that you consume. Impose friction. Use physical barriers of change to ease limbic friction, a term used by Lab Huron. Remove physical barriers. Do not follow advice about distrusting yourself. Use the unhelpful behaviors, take common sense advice, and unhelpful advice, thinking patterns as causes such as guilt, shame, scarcity-based mindsets and thoughts. This all or nothing mindset, let go of them. Build the deserved self-efficacy, self-trust. Learn to enjoy food again. Sit with the discomfort of realizing that you're going to be okay. Get on board with the fact that what you find is hard. Use the unhelpful behaviors as a vehicle to remember how capable you are, and then take the advice you would give to another person. Go easy on yourself, on your fastness to think people are gonna be pitiful or upset about you. Take your time. It is tough. Admit. We are not born with all the knowledge ever. Lean into the other things. You're allowed to think that you're good things too. Turn on the volume. Curiously write them down. Say, this is the best I've ever been, because everything's not great, a lot is going on, and I'm fine. That's it. You're safe. You're harmless. You're just trying to be nice, and no one's coming for you. And I am aware of my successes. Write all the things you were gonna think you were gonna do or have happened or was worried about down. This may serve as proof that things are not always happening, actually. Let go of attachments. Use breathwork and meditation and detachment between reality versus just thoughts and feelings. Understand and talk about your anxiety. Express it. Think, I'm not by you, I am with you. It's not so personal. Not so personal that you have to solve something that is powerlessness to this degree. Stay calm and wonderful as much as possible. Do things for your own integrity. Do things to be able to handle fluctuations. You need to see what matters anymore. Kindness gets stuff done. Pain is not always inappropriate.